Students, in this video we'll discuss 50 important multiple choice questions on major constitutional amendments. Let's begin. This video is going to be divided into 5 difficulty levels. This is level 1, question number 1 to question number 10. First question. Which constitutional amendment introduced the Goods and Services Tax GST in India? Right answer, option B, 101st Constitutional Amendment Act. Question 2. The right to education was made a fundamental right by which amendment? Option D is the correct answer, the 86th Constitutional Amendment Act. It made fundamental right to education a fundamental right under Article 21A. 3. The 42nd Amendment is popularly referred to as the Mini Constitution due to option number E, extensive constitutional changes. Option number A is the correct answer. 4. Which amendment added the words socialist and secular to the preamble? Option number C is the correct answer, the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act 1976. 5. The Anti-Defection Law was introduced through which amendment? Option A is the correct answer, the 52nd Constitutional Amendment Act. 6. Voting age was reduced from 21 to 18 years by the 61st Constitutional Amendment Act. Very important question. Option number C is the correct answer. 7. Constitutional status to panchayats was granted by another very important question. Option number D, 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act. Here comes another important question. Constitutional status to municipalities was granted by 74th. 73rd was for panchayats and 74th one is for the municipalities. 9. Which amendment is associated with reforms in emergency provisions? Right answer, option C, 44th Constitutional Amendment Act 1978. It replaced the word internal disturbance with armed rebellion, and this is proclaimed by the Article 352, National Emergency. 10. Reservation for economically weaker sections was introduced by another very important question. Option B, 103rd Constitutional Amendment Act. It added economically weaker sections of the society. Now we are moving on to level 2. Question number 11 to 20. 11. Which amendment restored the normal tenure of Lok Sabha after it was extended during emergency? After the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act, the tenure of Lok Sabha was increased to 6 years. Later on, by the 44th Amendment, it was again restored to 5 years. So right answer here is option C, 44th. 12. Which subject was shifted from the state list to the concurrent list by the 42nd Amendment? Option B is the correct answer, education. Education is now a subject of the concurrent list. 13. Which amendment significantly curtailed judicial review during emergency? Option D is the correct answer, the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act. 14. The amendment that made it binding for the President to act on the advice of the Council of Ministers is the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act. Option C is the correct answer. It made it obligatory for the President to act on the advice of the Council of Ministers. Article 74. 15. Which fundamental right was protected from suspension even during emergency by the 44th Amendment? Option B, Article 20 and 21. These two articles can never be suspended, or these two fundamental rights can never be suspended even during emergency. 16. The 9th schedule was introduced by which amendment? Option D is the correct answer, the 1st Constitutional Amendment. 17. The 24th Amendment is associated with option B, expanding Parliament's amending power. Option B is the correct answer. 18. Fundamental duties were added by. Fundamental duties, very important question. Article 51A, Part 4A. Right answer also B. The 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act. The fundamental duties were added. Right now, 11 fundamental duties are there. But at the time of adding it, there were 10 fundamental duties. 19. Reorganization of states on linguistic basis was enabled by the 7th Amendment. Option B is the correct answer. The 7th Amendment added the reorganization of states on linguistic basis. Option B is the correct answer. Now we are moving on to question number 20. Which amendment abolished privy parts? Option B is the correct answer. Another very important question. Abolition of privy parts via the 26th Constitutional Amendment Act. Now we are moving on to level 3. Question number 21 to 30. 21. We have a difficult question. Which of the following statements regarding the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act is right? First statement, it added fundamental duties. It's correct. It strengthened judicial review. No, it curtailed the powers of judicial review. Statement 3, it amended the preamble. Is also right. So 1 and 3 are correct. Let's see what's the right answer. Yes. Option number A is the right answer. 1 and 3, statement 1 and statement 3 are right, whereas statement 2 is wrong. 22. Which amendment is indirectly linked to the evolution of the basic structure of doctrine? Right answer. Option number C, 42nd. The 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act indirectly linked the evolution of the basic structure of the doctrine or the doctrine of basic structure. 23. The Anti-Defection Law applies to. Option number C, both Parliament and State Legislature. Option number C is the right answer. 24. Which amendment imposes a limit on the size of the Council of Ministers? Right answer. Option B, the 91st Constitutional Amendment Act. The 91st Constitutional Amendment Act imposed a limit on the size of the Council of Ministers. 25. The 97th Amendment relates to. 97th. It is related to cooperative societies. Option number C is the correct answer. The 92nd Constitutional Amendment Act is related to cooperative societies. 26. Which amendment led to the creation of National Judicial Appointments Commission? Later, it was struck down. Right answer. Option number C, the 99th Constitutional Amendment Act. It added or paved the way for the National Judicial Appointments Commission. Later, it was scrapped down. 27. Constitutional status to the National Commission for Backward Classes was granted by. Right answer. Option B, 102nd Constitutional Amendment Act. 28. The right to property was removed from the fundamental rights by. Another very, very important question. It used to be a fundamental right, but it's now a legal right under Article 300A. Option number C is the correct answer. The 44th Constitutional Amendment Act. It removed right to property from fundamental rights and it's now a legal right. 29. The 73rd Amendment primarily deals with Panchayati Raj. Option number D. Very important question. Panchayati Raj. 73rd Amendment Act. 30. The 74th Amendment deals with municipalities. Option number D, municipal governance. Option number D is the correct answer. Now we are moving on to level 4. Question number 31 to 40. 31. Which of the following pairs is correctly matched? 61st GST. No, it's wrong. 86th right to education. So we have found the right answer. Option number B. 86th Constitutional Amendment Act is associated with right to education. 32. Which amendment is known as the mini constitution? We already know the answer. It is the 42nd one. 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act is also known as mini constitution. 33. Which amendment is associated with disqualification on grounds of defection? Option B. 52nd Constitutional Amendment Act. It is associated with disqualification on the grounds of defection. 34. Which amendment introduced the GST Council? Right answer, option A, 101st. 101st Constitutional Amendment Act added GST, Goods and Services Tax. 35. Which amendment most significantly attempted to limit judicial review? It was the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act, option number D. 36. Which amendment strengthened directive principles over fundamental rights? Right answer of this question is option number C, 42nd. The 42nd, no, it is not 25, it is the 42nd. The 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act strengthened directive principles over the fundamental rights. 37. Which amendment reversed several provisions of the 42nd Amendment? It was 44th. Option B. The 44th Constitutional Amendment Act reversed some of the provisions or majority of the provisions given under 42nd Amendment Act. 38. Which amendment extended the tenure of Lok Sabha to 6 years? Later it was reversed. We already know this. Right answer of this question is 42nd. The 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act increased the tenure of Lok Sabha to 6 years. Later it was revised by the 44th one to 5 years. Now it is 5 years. 39. Which amendment is associated with extension of delimitation freeze? Right answer, option A, the 84th Constitutional Amendment Act. It gave a provision for the extension of the delimitation freeze. 40. Which amendment dealt with the cooperative society? Right answer of this question is option C, 97th. No, it is not 99th. It is the 97th Constitutional Amendment Act that deals with the cooperative societies. Now we are moving on to level 5. Question of 41 to 50. 41. Which amendment inserted Article 31C giving primacy to directive principles over fundamental rights? It was the 25th Constitutional Amendment Act. Option B is the right answer. 42. We have a difficult question. First statement. 44th Amendment made Article 20 and 21 non-suspendable. It's right. 42nd Amendment reduced scope of judicial review. This one is also correct. Statement 3. 24th Amendment limited Parliament's amending power. No, the third one is not correct. So option number A should be the right answer here. 1 and 2 only. Yes, 1 and 2. Both statement 1 and statement 2 are correct. So option number A is the right answer for this question. Another difficult looking question. Which of the following amendments is correctly associated with its key feature? 82nd Amendment, introduction of fundamental duties. No, it's wrong. 91st Amendment, limitation on size of Council of Ministers. This one is correct. We have the right answer here as option B. Yes, it is the right answer here. The 91st Constitutional Amendment Act is associated with the limitation on the size of the Council of Ministers. 44. Which amendment strengthened Parliament's power by modifying Article 368? It was option C, 42nd. The 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act strengthened the Parliament's power to modify Article 368. 45. Which amendment is most directly associated with the Kesavananda Bharati case context? Difficult question. Option A is the correct answer. The 24th Constitutional Amendment Act. It was majorly associated with the Kesavananda Bharati case context, the doctrine of basic structure. 46. Which amendment enabled reservation in private educational institutions excluding minority institutions? Right answer of this question is option C, the 93rd Constitutional Amendment Act. Option C is the correct answer here. Next question, 47. Which amendment replaced the Planning Commission with a constitutional body? Look friends, Planning Commission was not a constitutional body. Therefore, the right answer should be option number D. Let's check out. Yes, option number D is the correct answer. Planning Commission was not a constitutional body. 48. Which amendment is associated with land reform protection via 9th schedule? It was option number E, first schedule. The first schedule was associated with land reforms and it is added in the 9th schedule. 49. Which amendment extended reservation for SC/ST in legislature's recent extension? Option D, 104th Constitutional Amendment Act. 50. Which amendment is most closely associated with fiscal federalism reforms through indirect taxation? It is nothing but GST. So right answer should be option number C. 101st Constitutional Amendment Act is associated with GST and it is nothing but an indirect tax. Students, here comes the end of the video. I hope you have enjoyed the session. If you have enjoyed the session, please do like the video, share the video with your friends, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe.